So the Sixers 2024 schedule has released, and it certainly is different from years prior. We'll talk about some of the interesting changes and try to predict how many games this team can win in 2024. Also, Tyrese Maxey receives huge praise from a former teammate, and Daryl Morey talks about how this offseason came about. We'll get into all of it, but welcome into Philly Take with RB. I'm RB. Do me a favor, like the video and subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy the coverage. But the Sixers schedule dropped, and now I have a good chance to kind of consolidate my thoughts. If I had to ask you down below in the comment section, how many games do you think the Sixers are going to win in 2024? Drop your record predictions. Maybe at some point we'll do, a giveaway or something like that. But the Sixers schedule has dropped, and here are all the opponents. Not going to go over the whole thing, but you've probably seen it by now. They play Milwaukee on October 23rd. That'll be the first game. Looks like they have a pretty fair start to the season. They do play the Celtics on Christmas Day, and then they do have some back-to-backs later in the season. Definitely tougher than before, but here are my overall thoughts on the schedule. So, one, they have the West Coast trips before the New Year's, which is very unusual. Usually they'll have one in like October, November, or maybe even December, and then they'll have the other one in like March. This year they have both early in the season. So as you can see right here on November 4th, they go out to Phoenix and they have the Clippers, Lakers. And then right before the New Year, heading into it, they go to Utah, and then they play Portland, and then Sacramento and Golden State. So the West Coast trips are earlier this year. Maybe that has something to do with Paul George, right? They play the Clippers twice in November. Usually that does not happen until later in the season. So it looks like the Sixers can get those out of the way. Might be a bit tougher, but they're definitely going to need it. It definitely seems like the first half of this schedule is a lot easier than the second half. And that brings me to another point. January and March are probably the toughest months again this year, with 17 games in each month, and then 5 back-to-backs. So doesn't seem like they have a lot of back-to-backs early, but as they get later into the season in that, I guess I could call it prime stretch, where they're going to have to be rocking and rolling if they want to keep their seeding. Hopefully everybody's healthy. It's going to really be a huge test to this team. And then I would say before they get into that in December, they need to rack up as many wins as possible. I would say last year, I think it was December 2, where they had a really easy month. They're playing the Pistons and the Hornets and teams like that. So, yeah, December is going to be that month where they need to have like a money month, where they just need to rack up wins. How many games will the Sixers win in 2024? My official prediction, I got it right 2 years ago. Last year was screwed up by the Embiid injury, but I'm going to say 56 wins. You taking an over or under on that? I like 56. I think this will be good enough to get them either the second or third seed in the East. Maybe they win more. Maybe other teams get injured and they win more. I just think the Celtics, have proven who they are now, and they're going to be very good in the regular season. They brought all their pieces back. They extended them for, it feels like, centuries at this point. And I think the Sixers will be one of the top teams in the East. Matter of fact, I said this on Bleacher Report. I think they need to be one of the top teams in the East. They need that home court advantage going into the playoffs. There's always surprises. There's always teams that you think are going to be good, and then they don't perform as well. But I think the Sixers, if healthy, right? Big asterisk here. If healthy, should be able to win more games, because now they have that third piece that can hopefully step up on certain nights where you're not going to need an Embiid 50 bomb to win in November. You're not going to need a Maxey 35 bomb to win in December, right? Now you have Paul George, who can hopefully take the rock and take over on certain nights. Another year under the system of Nick Nurse. They need to gel. They need to have that chemistry. But overall, you have probably the best trio in the NBA, and those guys should be able to give you 80, 90 points a night. So if they stay healthy for a good chunk of the season, I think they should have regular season success. Needs to translate in the playoffs, but I'm taking them at 56 wins. 56 and 26 should be good enough for a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. Do you agree or disagree? Give me your thoughts down below. Now, I want to talk about Daryl Morey, because he had a little interview clip come out with Nick Nurse. I think it was part of the Sixers interview stuff, and pretty much they talked about this offseason and how it came about, but I really like this quote from Daryl Morey, and shout out to Kevin McCormick over here on SI. He wrote about it and kind of summed it up well. But Morey and head coach Nick Nurse did a joint interview, and Morey was asked about this offseason and when the preparation for it began. The longtime exec stated that the groundwork started to be laid last summer after Harden requested a trade. Quote, I think one of the things we try to do is have the team be in a stable position no matter what decisions are made by players. At that point, when we took a step back and said, okay, if we do trade James, what is the right plan? It was to go the route that we've gone that led to getting Paul George and this offseason. So I think this honestly speaks to a good amount of maturity from the Sixers front office and ownership for, being criticized as much as they have been, and, deservedly so, right? They've made a lot of bad decisions, but they've also made some good ones. Daryl Morey, a longtime exec, could have panicked again. He could have went out there and not traded James like he said, and, he could have held on to him or tried to go another star for star, but he was playing chess out here. He said, okay, fine. We will sell James off. We'll trade him. This is not going to get resolved, even though we've been good friends. The bridges are burned. James Harden went out on camera and said what he did. So Daryl Morey was playing chess and said, no problem. We'll get as much assets as we can. We'll have this bridge year in the cap space plan. And then, we'll go out and sign our guy next summer. We'll splash in when everybody else, is still kind of just fiddling around. And Daryl Morey went out and he did everything he wanted to this offseason. Still think that the team needs one more piece. But, I love the way that he kind of was patient here. Instead of always being the guy to go star right away, he took a step back and said, let's just wait. Let's just wait and see what happens. And Paul George kind of fell into their lap and they were able to get it done. So great job by Daryl Morey, and Nick Nurse talked in this interview as well about how excited he is that there's more continuity now with this team. And speaking of which, James Harden had some praise for Tyrese Maxey at the Rico Hines Runs. We've been getting footage watching that, but James Harden says, quote, I got the pleasure and opportunity to be with Tyrese Maxey 2 years ago. He works his ass off. So yeah, once again, just another, former teammate, another guy who's been around the league for a long time, who's done a lot of things at a high level, giving praise to Tyrese Maxey and the work ethic. And we already know Reese is going to be special, but just hearing things like this is pretty cool, especially with how the fall off happened with the Sixers. You see that Harden and Maxey still work out together. They still have a good relationship. And Maxey is now garnering that level of respect from some of the guys who have done it at a high level for a very long time. So glad to hear that. Glad to see it. And I think Maxey's going to have a huge leap again this year. I think him and Embiid will do their thing, but now adding PG into the mix is only going to throw fire onto it. So I can't wait to see what happens. Give me your thoughts down below. How good can this trio be? How many games are they going to win? Give me your thoughts. Appreciate everybody staying tapped in, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.